Okay, so next part here, after what is enlightenment, is explaining samsara, the suffering of samsara. The first thing the Buddha taught after his enlightenment was the truth of suffering, the cause of which is ignorance. Because of ignorance, we are unable to see the compositeness of our perceptions. All the physical and mental forces that come together create this seemingly solid world. This leads to grasping and the endless cycle of suffering called samsara. Samsara, in all of its suffering, begins when we get caught up in solidifying external appearances instead of remaining on our fundamental ground. And then she breaks these down into contemplations. So this contemplation is, and I think this is fantastic, ask yourself if it is necessary to make such great issues of things arising from the compositeness of our senses. We can feel and understand these experiences, but none of them is solid. The moment we say happiness, for example, that moment has moved on. We may assume that this is the same happiness of a few moments ago, but other than the grasping mind that thinks it is so, nothing actually stays the same. We could spend a lifetime fixated on experiences of happiness, anger, ignorance, hatred, or jealousy. To really understand suffering, think about the magnitude and intensity of the suffering caused by grasping. There are many ways to look at suffering. We've all experienced difficulties, pain, and some amount of tragedy in our lives. We've all lost people who were very dear and close to us. Even now, some of us may be suffering from very difficult disease or difficult times. Most of us, however, have had comfortable lives untouched by Buddha's noble truth of suffering. We've seen very little suffering in its entirety, which is what the suffering of all sentient beings actually means. Because we've seen so little suffering, we have no real aversion to samsara, which still seems like a very nice place to be. Attractive, with plenty of room in which to live and indulge ourselves. We never stop to consider that all sentient beings want happiness and freedom from suffering just as much as we do. That kind of selfishness and inability to understand our interdependence is the manifestation of ignorance, which creates samsara. If you have any attention or devotion to the path of practice, any sense that it is really helpful and beneficial, you must ask yourself, how well do I truly understand suffering? The purpose of these teachings is to help us see the depth of suffering in the world and the cause of that suffering, which is ignorance. Ignorance is the one, if very invisible, cause of unhappiness in this world. It is the one thing that prevents simple awareness and genuine human goodness and kindness from arising without obstructions. In the form of habitual tendencies, it distracts from our fundamental nature, which nevertheless remains constant and complete, like the luminosity of the sun. And I'll move on then to, oh, no I won't, because the battery's going to die. So let's, there's no power up here. I can go down there and there's power outside, but up here in the woods, on the hill, there's no power. So I'll leave it at that, and we'll move on down there to the three root poisons. But this is probably one of the most important little bits here to think about, and I of course would love comments.